Do you or anyone you know have a child that is a picky eater? If so, then please stay tuned, because today I'm really, really excited to be talking to Judith. She is the picky eater expert and the author of Creating Confident Eaters, Positive, Gentle Steps for Parents. So Judith, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. Firstly, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what made you write this book?
Well, thanks, Sandy. It's lovely to be here and I appreciate you having me on. Look, I work with over 100 families a year and I help parents to support their children to add new foods gently and joyfully. I wrote the book because I really wanted something to empower parents to resolve issues themselves. My feeling is in 99% of cases, even with really extreme eaters, parents are the best ones to work with their child. Who is more invested, spends more time, or knows a child better than a parent. And so the book is really unique because there was nothing that said what I wanted to say on the marketplace, so I decided I had to write it myself. Mm-hmm. And it's unlike anything else that you'll find. If you want simple, practical, gentle, and manageable steps, then it's a must. And what we do is we take commonly eaten foods like pasta and bread and toast and crackers and nuggets, and we say, okay, this is what my child eats. Mm-hmm. How do we move from there in teeny tiny baby steps that are okay for mum and that are acceptable for the child? And, it's all about that just gentle rocking. Once we start making those little changes, suddenly, we can just move in a new direction. And that's what it's all about.
Oh, cool. Sounds really really interesting. So as a mum of 3 boys, aged 2 to 7, I have had my fair struggle with picky eating, as I think most people do. So we all get told that kids are picky eaters. So what is the difference between normal picky eating and picky eating that might need some extra assistance from an expert?
Okay, well, you know what, the difficulty is that there's no crystal ball. So it's really hard to tell, is it a phase or is it going to, grow into something more? And often something that starts as a phase, depending on how we handle it, then can get more protracted and become an issue. And I know that, that doctors are very fond of saying, oh, well, they're just going to grow out of it. And in some cases that's true, but I'm just going to give you some statistics here because I think it's really important that we understand this. The picky eating experts around the world agree that between 5 and 10% of kids have eating issues that are so extreme that they will not grow out of them without serious intervention. That means that in a class of 30 kids, you're going to have 1, maybe 2 kids that, really, really struggle to eat. And that's my experience with working with parents. There are so many parents who have children with really quite extreme eating issues, and they're sort of going under the radar. And obviously, like any other problem, if we address it early, it's usually better than waiting. But there are some really good red flag issues to look for. Eating is a normal phase, and toddlers through to sort of age 5, you're often getting I love bananas one day, I hate them the next, and that's just the way it is, and that's fine. But there are a couple of things that set off some alarm bells, and it's not necessarily, worrying, but it's good to watch out for. If your child never adds new foods, then obviously that's going to be a problem. If your child's dropping foods, that's another issue. If your child's really rigid about how they approach food, so, the toast has to be exactly like this, and, and it has to be on this plate, and it can't have any little brown bits, really, really sort of rigid in their approach. If meal times are really stressful, really emotional, really, really challenging for them, if they have really extreme reactions to a new food, if they're losing weight, if they're eating less than 20 foods. And let me clarify this: a cheese pizza with the cheese, the tomato paste, the cheese on top, and say some ham, that would be 4 foods. So if they're eating less than 20 foods, if they avoid whole food groups, so they're not eating any fruit or any vegetables, something like that. All of these are red flags that we look out for. I can send a link and you can put it up on your page if you like, so then people can sort of just refer to it. Yeah.
That would be wonderful. Oh, thank you. That that makes it really, really clear. And certainly I think my first one was ticked a lot of those boxes. Luckily, he's grown out of it by now,
Yes.
but yeah, he definitely had a lot of those issues. So I can very much understand how difficult that is as a parent. Yeah. And so for those parents who are starting out though, I know because I had so many issues with the first one, I did a lot of things differently the second time round, and I introduced food a little bit later because the first one was at 4 months, and I introduced a lot more textures and did a lot of different things, and it didn't seem to make much difference. So are there some practical steps that we can take when introducing solids that could possibly reduce the chances of having a picky eater later down the track? Or is this more an emotional or psychological thing that starts to present?
Picky eaters become picky eaters for so many different reasons that there's no sort of one magical reason that they become picky eaters, and so on the other side there's no magical way to stop them becoming picky eaters. And there are some children who are just predestined to be more selective than others. They've actually done tests on babies, and ones that go on to be extremely selective eaters actually have different sucking patterns at 2 and 4 weeks than those that go on to be competent eaters. So there's something inbuilt in them right from the start, which isn't to say that we can't help and support them, but they're just going to find food that much more challenging, and that's just a fact. But there are, I think, more than the food itself, a lot of it's in our approach. So if we make food a joyful experience, if we're relaxed around meal times, if we share food with our children, if we, do expose them to a wide range of foods, even if they're not eating them, and even if they're consistently not eating them, then all of that has a positive influence. And you might not see it for a long time, but it will have a positive influence. And I say to mums, if you're reading to your child, you will read to your child for probably 5 years and they won't read a word back to you. But we don't go, well, this is a waste of time, because we know that the more we read to them, the more they're going to have a love of books as they grow up. Well, food's exactly the same. We feed them carrots and we do it for 3 months, and then they don't eat them, and you go, they're never going to eat the carrots, and we stop. And in actual fact, it's like a book. And we wouldn't say to a 4-year-old who comes to us and says, Mum, you can have a book. No, of course you can't. You can't read yet. Well, we need to think the same thing about the carrots. Even if they're not eating them, even if they're consistently not eating them, we still need to just keep doing all of those positive things with them. We still need to keep serving them. We still need to keep changing them up. We still need to just keep going with what we're doing.
So just don't, absolutely. I actually do the same with my kids. So I have a 2-year-old that has completely stopped eating vegetables. So pretty much most days I'll just put some carrots or some veggies in his lunchbox, knowing full well that those veggies are going to come home and not be touched. But for me, it's more important that he understands that is going to be a very important part of his diet every single day. So I'm okay with him not eating it now. So I'm not giving up. And hopefully at some stage something will just click and he'll go, okay, I'm really hungry, I want to eat this, or try it. And
absolutely. And you're doing a couple of things here. Firstly, you're changing the look of his lunchbox. So if you're just sending a beige sandwich and a biscuit and a packet of chippies, for example, his lunchbox looks a certain way, and he's not expecting green and red and yellow and all these beautiful colors to be in there. So then when you do put them in, he's like, whoa, hang on, that doesn't look right. Whereas the veggies become a normalized part of what he's doing, which is perfect. If you never send a carrot, he's never going to eat a carrot. And you are also showing him your expectation that you believe he's going to learn to eat them. And that is so important. We do that with swimming. We do that with reading. Our expectation is our child will be able to swim. They will be able to read. We've got to have that same belief in the food. And I think you're right. At some point he will, and it might be that he's sitting next to someone who eats carrots for, every day. It might be that the kindy teacher's talking about bunnies. There will become a time when he just goes, okay, that carrot's okay.
Cool. And just with so many parents that I know, we were raised, I feel, in a generation where parents sat us down and said, you will eat this, you will finish your plate, I don't care what happens, you will sit there till it's eaten, and there will be no other option. So how important is it to play hardball? Should we be playing hardball at all? If they are being extremely fussy and extremely stubborn, do we offer them something else? And if we do that, is that going to make life harder for us in the long run?
Oh, there's about 20 questions in that.
Sorry, it's all
no, but it's all caught up in one. And I know that a lot of people say, well, in my day, it was I take it or leave it. But I know a lot of adults who have. I speak to a lot of parents, and a lot of them have issues around food because of that. Well, you must eat it, and they don't have a positive relationship with food because of it. So it works for some children, but for other children it can be really uncomfortable. So I know that's what we used to do, but I just don't know that that's the right thing to do. Eat it or starve can work for a reasonably competent eater. So if you've got an average eater, then, well, this is what's for dinner, you either eat it or you go hungry. Could be okay. If you have someone who's anxious around food, it could be awful. Because for them, they might look at that food and go, oh my God, it looks like a bunch of spiders. I just can't eat it. And when we're saying eat it or starve, we're not being empathetic towards them. We're not supporting them. And we're certainly not giving them a joy of and a love of food. And obviously, the more we love food, the easier it is to eat. So I want to clarify here and say, should you give your child nuggets because they say, well, I like nuggets and I don't want to eat anything else? No. But if your child, for example, struggles with mixed foods and you say, well, here's a lasagna, eat it or starve, we're not being realistic. That's like saying, well, if you don't swim 25 meters of the pool, then you failed, when in actual fact they just might not be a very good swimmer, and it might take them a little bit more time, and they might need a little bit more support, and they might need a little bit more encouragement, and that would be fine. So another great question, some questions that I say to ask parents is, am I supporting or am I enabling? So if my child goes, well, I just like nuggets and I give them nuggets every night, I'm enabling. If I know that the lasagna is going to be really, really challenging for them, and I give them a different version of chicken because I don't want them to just have the nuggets, I want them to be able to eat, but I also want them to move forwards, then that would be supporting. So it's often a balancing act between the two. Another question that's really good to ask is it behavioral or is it about the food? If it's behavioral, then I would say you treat it like any other behavior and you treat it accordingly. If it's about the food and your child is seriously struggling with something and they're obviously anxious about it and they're obviously finding it really difficult, then I would be kind, because, again, like anything else that we find difficult, we don't force our child to do something that's obviously making them really upset and really uncomfortable.
So, I 100% agree. As a mum, I'm very, very gentle. And I think that's probably because my mum was like that with me. I was very picky as a child. I didn't eat meat. I still don't eat meat. I've never liked it. And I really respected my mum for respecting me, even though I'm in a family from meat eaters. And so when my kids are like this, if they say I don't want to eat a specific type of food, a tomato or whatever, I'm completely okay with that. So I'm very gentle in my approach. And so is that something that you would say is the best way forward, is to help the children through the issue, or because for some kids that is definitely can, as you say, be very, very detrimental to the whole attitude towards food if they're forced to eat something that they don't want to eat.
I would never force a child to eat something they don't want to eat, never ever, because that's such an invasion of themselves and their independence. So I would be giving them the opportunity to eat that wide variety of foods. And I would say, yeah, we do that all the time. We have an expectation that they're going to learn to eat those foods, and that we are confident in ourselves that they will be able to do that. And that's what we put across. So all of those things, yes, but am I going to say you have to eat the chicken, or no, never.
Good.
And so I think, you know, there's always ways that you can do this, but do it kindly. And if you are having the lasagna and it is going to be really challenging for one of your children, then can you have some plain pasta noodles? And can you have some of the other ingredients that go to the lasagna? And could they build it themselves on their plate? And if they build it themselves on the plate and have the noodles here and have some cheese here and have some, you know, whatever else is going in the lasagna there, is that such a big deal? While they get more comfortable, I would say no, because they're still sharing in the lasagna. If they're not eating it all together, but they're eating the components or some of those components, then they're moving in the right direction, and that's what you're looking for.
No, that's good. Yeah, okay. No, that's that clears it up. Thank you so much. So what is your number one tip? Sorry about that. I'll just switch that off. What is your number one tip for you know, to combat picky eating? So if you've got a child that is very, very stubborn, how do we approach it? What's our first step?
Okay. Almost every family I work with tells me their child is stubborn. That is the nature of selective eating. So don't think your child is the most stubborn and they are so stubborn that nothing will work for them, because that's every parent that has a selective eater. So, so that's the first thing. This is really easy. Change. Okay, so if we don't change things, nothing will change. They're very happy stuck in their little, you know, picky eating world. And so for us to make a difference, we need to change the things that we're doing to enable them to do the things they're doing. The other thing is that change is the precursor to new. If you can't accept change, how are you going to accept something new? So I'll give you a really simple example, and this is taken from the book. So for example, your child only has toast and peanut butter for breakfast. Now, if we just keep serving them peanut butter for breakfast, on toast for breakfast, what's going to happen? And often, actually, they can go backwards when we do this, because what happens is they have that peanut butter on toast for breakfast for 6 months, and then they have a bad experience, or they get bored, and then they drop it, and then it's like, oh my goodness, I've got nothing for breakfast. So we can, depending on how selective your child is, so if you've got a really extremely anxious child, maybe what we do is we just, instead of cutting it into squares, we cut it into rectangles. And that might seem silly and, well, they're just eating the same thing. But the way, when we change the way it looks, when we change the way that it starts to get them thinking differently. It starts to get them accepting something that's slightly new. And we're starting to challenge that rigidity that my toast has to be, you know, exactly like this. And then maybe what we do is we cut it into soldiers and we get the peanut butter, and instead of having it spread on top, we dip our soldiers into it. Now, of course, there's ways to do it that, because, you know, mums will go, oh, but my child wouldn't do that. And that's possibly true, but like anything else, the way we market it can have a huge difference. So when I sit my child down and plonk something that looks totally different in front of them and then expect them to eat it, no, because the chances are they're going to freak out. So, you know, I'd get them in the kitchen. I'd say, oh, I'm going to make some toast for your big brother, and you're not going to believe what we're going to do. We're going to soften the peanut butter in the microwave, and then we're going to dip the soldiers in. Can you help me cut it up? Can you come and have a look? Dip your finger in the peanut butter. What do you think it's going to take? You know, that's a really different way to approach what you're doing. So even with a really extremely selective eater, what we're looking to do is just rock that pedestal. Just get them doing something slightly different, and then something else slightly different. And suddenly you find that you've gone from being totally stuck to actually, you know, moving forward. So, you know, I think it's really important, that we do, you know, just make those changes. Because if we don't make those changes, nothing's going to happen.
And then small baby steps over a long period of time will give us a good positive outcome.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, and if you've got I'm sorry, I'm just going to turn that off. If you've got a 2-year-old, you've got years. So if it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months, does it matter? No. But even if you've got a 9-year-old, they're still going to be with you for how many more years? So really, just get started.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much. That's that's actually really, really helpful. Judith, I was going to just ask you one question. What is your greatest success story in terms of helping a child that has been really, really picky with eating?
You know what? I've got so many. I really do. I'm going to give you 2. First one's really quick. Little girl who was 4 who ate peanut butter on Cruskits for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we got her within a week eating new foods, and that was just fantastic. It was just so exciting. And then one of my favorite stories, a little boy who was phobic about anything green, wouldn't let anything green be on the table, even if he didn't have to eat it. He would freak out. And he wouldn't sit in the trolley when he was little because his fingers were too close to the lettuce. And so it was about a month after I worked with his parents, and his mum took him to a cafe, and he ordered a pastry, and it came and it had little green Hermie flecks through it, and she just let him go and didn't sort of say anything to the waiter waitress, and he ate the pastry. And it was just such a change in the way he looked at things. Now, that's not to say that everything was all roses and easy. No. The mum was working on this, and the whole family were working on this week in, week out. But now, this is 3 years later, he asks for extra lettuce in his burger.
It's amazing.
And it is, and it's a beautiful story, and it just shows. But as the parent, we have to be the one doing the work. But it gets easier and easier. But we have to do that work at the start. Yeah. Because if we just say, well, it's a phase, they grow out of it. But are you okay waiting 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? Are you okay with the frustration and the challenges that having a picky eater in your house throws up, and holidays and social occasions and all this sort of stuff? And if your child then starts to get worse, then should you have done something 1, 2, 3?
Thank you so much. Judith, how do, for anyone who's listening who wants to read your book or find out a little bit more about you or learn about you, how do they get hold of your book? How do they learn, how do they hear more about you and some, I suppose you do some talks or anything like that? So.
Oh, well, look, I'd love to have anybody who's interested join our Facebook group, because we're there's tons and tons of good tips and tons of feedback on there. So you can reach us at Facebook, theconfidenteater.com, or we can go to the website, theconfidenteater.com. If anybody feels they've got a problem and they just like to talk it through with someone and discover, look, is my child just in a normal sort of phase, or is this something more? I offer a free 40-minute appointment where we can talk through, look at what the issues are, and come up with some solutions. And I can tell you pretty quickly, is this something where there's alarm bells ringing, or is it just, it should be okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and if you go to the website, you can buy the book.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Judith. And thank you for offering that free service as well, because I'm sure that'll be very, very helpful to so many parents. Yes. Now, Judith's been really, really generous, and she's offered one free book to people on this page. So we're going to be doing a little giveaway. So please keep an eye on that. I will be posting that later on today as well. So do enter the competition and tag all your friends that you feel might benefit from this book as well. And thank you so much, Judith, for all your time.
Okay, it was lovely to talk to you, Sandy. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.